Welcome to the deep dive.
Oh,
Ever felt like traditional language learning just doesn't quite cut it?
oh yeah,
With the grammar drills and the endless vocabulary lists. Like you memorize the words, but you don't really get how people actually use them.
exactly. Like how they sound in real conversation.
Right. Well, what if the secret to really unlocking English wasn't buried in a textbook, but maybe hiding in plain sight? Like
Right.
in the messy, funny, and let's be honest, relatable lives of a modern American family.
Interesting idea.
Yeah. So maybe put the flashcards down for a second because today we're going somewhere a bit different.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So, today's deep dive takes us into the pilot episode of Modern Family, show a lot of people love.
Absolutely.
And our mission today isn't just, pulling out vocabulary words. We want to peel back the layers, really get into the cultural context, the social stuff, and all those little subtle bits of everyday English that make this show, honestly, such a fantastic resource for learning.
Yeah, it's packed.
Totally. We'll be looking right at the script, pulling out specific words, phrases, and exploring how American culture, at least as it's shown on screen, really shapes not just the language, but how these characters connect and talk to each other.
And that's where it gets really good, isn't it? We're gonna look at the richness of the dialogue, the humor, obviously, and those character interactions that just kind of stick with you.
Right.
Think of this as your shortcut to being well informed, not just about the show itself, but about the living, breathing language it uses. It's about seeing English through, well, real human experiences. So let's get into it.
Okay, so to really appreciate the linguistic goldmine that Modern Family is, we kind of need to meet the main players first. The show revolves around three distinct branches of one big extended family.
Right, the three families.
Yeah. And even just their initial character descriptions give us a ton of really useful descriptive English vocabulary. These words don't just tell you what someone's like, they often hint at their whole way of seeing the world, their communication style, everything.
And it's such a diverse bunch. Let's start with the Dunphys. They kind of represent that classic American suburban life, right? A household that's full of laughs, a bit of chaos, and plenty of that awkward teenage angst.
Definitely. And right at the heart of it is Claire Dunphy. The script describes her as late 30s, uptight suburban mom, tries to make every day special for her kids, needs control. That word uptight, it's so loaded, isn't it?
It really is. What does it actually mean in this context?
Well, uptight suggests someone who's anxious, maybe a bit nervous, rigid, someone who finds it hard to relax, and, crucially, feels that need to micromanage everything. It's almost like a whole personality in one word.
And you see it right away. Her shouting for breakfast, starting kind of normal kids' breakfast, then bang, breakfast that immediately screams uptight.
Uh-huh. It's that kind of frantic energy, that absolute need for things to be a certain way.
Totally. And later, when Haley, her oldest, comes down in that really short skirt, Claire's reaction is instant. Haley, you're not wearing that skirt. It's pure uptight need to control.
Right, managing every little detail.
Even
And then her panic later about Haley maybe getting pregnant,
Yeah.
it just locks in that persona. It's a word that really defines her whole approach.
Okay. Then there's her husband, Phil Dunphy, also late 30s, real estate agent. He's described as upbeat, goofy, thinks he's cooler than he is. Goofy, that's another great one.
Goofy is perfect for Phil. It means, silly, a bit awkward, but usually in an endearing way. It's not really negative. It suggests this kind of lighthearted, maybe clumsy charm.
Oh, Goofy is so Phil. You see it in his attempts, his often really awkward attempts to be the cool dad.
Like with Dylan.
Yes. When Haley's friend Dylan shows up, Phil leans in, offers the fist bump, and goes, Phil Dunphy, yo! It's just classic awkward Phil trying way too hard.
Yeah.
And his internal monologue, where he imagines sounding tough to Dylan, your eyes are saying, I know what you're here for, and that shiznit is broke, that perfectly shows his goofy attempt at being cool that just doesn't land.
Right. It's endearing because it's so clearly him. And it teaches you that language isn't just the words, it's the delivery, the intent behind them.
Definitely. Okay, next up, their oldest daughter, Haley Dunphy. She's 16, social, fashion conscious, rebellious, has a wild streak. What about wild streak?
Wild streak, that's a good one. It suggests a tendency towards maybe unpredictable behavior, rebellious, maybe a bit uncontrolled, not necessarily completely off the rails, but
Yeah.
definitely implies a kind of playful pushing against the rules.
And you see that wild streak straight away, don't you? The short skirt choice, her general sort of eye rolling at her parents,
Right.
the fact she's got a boyfriend coming over. All these little things signal that rebellious side. It sets up a lot of the family conflict in comedy, and it gives you a window into how teenage rebellion kind of looks and sounds in American English.
Then there's Alex Dunphy, 13. She's smart, cynical, insightful for her age. Cynical, that's a key word for her.
What exactly does cynical imply here?
It means she's kind of distrustful of people's motives, often seeing the worst or the most self-interested reasons behind things. She's skeptical, always looking for the less noble truth underneath.
And her delivery is so deadpan. When she says, Luke got his head stuck in the banister again with zero emotion, hilarious.
Right. It's that detached observation. And her questions about Haley maybe getting pregnant, almost like a science experiment, asking if Claire would pretend the baby was hers, that shows that cynical, analytical view of people. It teaches you cynical isn't just negative, it's a whole way of seeing things.
And finally, the youngest Dunphy, Luke, he's 10. Immature, simple, not the brightest bulb. Not the brightest bulb. Love that idiom.
It's a great one. A wonderfully funny, polite, and super common way to say someone isn't, well, the sharpest tool in the shed.
Yeah.
Not very intelligent or quick. It's gentle, not really mean.
And Luke lives up to it, doesn't he? Getting his head stuck in the banister twice.
Twice, exactly.
And when Phil asks how many pairs of underwear he has on, and Luke just answers confused, 1. Pause, 6. It just confirms, yeah, he's not the brightest bulb. It's endearing, but definitely a running joke built around that one idiom.
Okay, so moving on from the Dunphys, let's talk about the Pritchett Delgados. Here we get this really interesting mix of cultures and personalities, lots of warmth, but also some comedic friction.
For sure. And heading this family is Jay Pritchett in his 60s. He's a successful businessman, struggles to stay young for her. That phrase, struggles to stay young, that says a lot, doesn't it?
It really does. It points to that societal pressure, especially maybe for older guys with younger partners, to seem youthful, relevant,
Yeah.
trying to bridge that age gap. It hints at insecurities, wanting to fit in.
And then his actions totally show it. Using that really loud, colorful jacket and the jeweled Ed Hardy hat.
Oh, yeah. Classic attempt to look younger and trendier, but it just kind of clashes with who he really is.
Yeah. And he gets so irritated when people mistake him for Gloria's dad at the soccer game. That comes right from that struggle, right? Which leads him to that funky clothes store later, still trying.
Exactly. It's more than just clothes. It's about his identity, his relationship.
And his wife, the vibrant Gloria Pritchett, she's in her 30s, described as Hispanic, beautiful, strong, quick-tempered, protective mother. Quick-tempered, that's a powerful description for her.
It really is. Quick-tempered means easily angered, prone to losing your temper. And Gloria embodies that with such passion.
Especially when it comes to Manny. At the soccer game, when an opponent tricks Manny, she's instantly fiery. He tripped him. Where's the penalty?
Right. And when that other mom criticizes Manny, Gloria, like lightning fast, wheels on her. Great description, by the way.
Yeah, reels on her.
And aggressively says, you want to take him out? How about I take you out? That immediate, intense reaction. Pure, quick-tempered Gloria. It shows how emotion translates directly into confrontation for her.
Then there's Manny Delgado, Gloria's son, Jay's stepson. Around 12, he's an old soul, sensitive, passionate, a young romantic. Old soul, such a lovely term.
It is, isn't it? An old soul is someone who seems wise or mature, maybe experienced beyond their actual age, often with deep emotions or kind of old-fashioned ways.
And Manny is totally an old soul. His romantic poem for Brenda Feldman wanting to wear a white silk shirt for his big gesture.
Uh-huh.
And his philosophical lines like, I put my thoughts into words and now my words into action. It all points to this maturity and romanticism way beyond a typical 12-year-old. That phrase really captures him.
It does. It shows how English can capture these abstract character traits with just a simple, evocative phrase.
Okay, and the third family branch, Mitchell and Cameron. Their story brings in themes of love, adoption, and all the funny, complex stuff around self-perception and family dynamics.
Right. Mitchell Pritchett, mid to late 30s, a dentist. He's described as gay, emotionally restrained, worrier. Emotionally restrained, what does that signal?
It means he holds back his feelings, suppresses them, often out of anxiety or discomfort, maybe wanting to keep things proper. It's about controlling how you express yourself.
And you see that emotionally restrained side immediately, right? His anxiety about Lily not sleeping on the plane
Yeah, he's clearly stressed.
and his worry about how the family will react to the adoption is almost physical. Plus, his discomfort with Cam's more dramatic gestures, like the whole circle of life entrance.
Right, he wants to tone that down.
Exactly. He's constantly trying to manage his own feelings and Cameron's big emotions. It shows how much communication happens and what isn't said or shown.
And the perfect contrast is Cameron Tucker, Mitchell's partner, also mid-30s, gay, described as free with emotions, lives in the moment, surprisingly strong, free with emotions, the total opposite of Mitchell.
Right. He expresses his feelings openly without holding back and lives in the moment that describes someone focused on the present, not worrying about past or future, often leads to impulsiveness.
And Cam is just a burst of feeling, that dramatic entrance with baby Lily holding her up to the circle of life music.
So over the top.
Totally. And the mural painting on Lily's ceiling, his impulsiveness, like meeting a Cinnabon right before meeting the family, it all shows him living in the moment and being free with emotions. He's a master of like nonverbal drama.
And then, of course, there's Lily Tucker Pritchett, the adopted baby girl from Vietnam, whose arrival really kicks off their story in the pilot. Just these character descriptions alone are like a mini masterclass in descriptive English.
They really are
Yeah.
so powerful, just a few words. But okay, beyond those intro descriptions, the show is just overflowing with practical, everyday English, vocabulary, idioms, all woven naturally into the conversations, stuff you wouldn't necessarily find in a dictionary context. Let's dig into some of those.
Yeah, understanding these common phrases is so important for learners because they rarely mean what they literally say, they're just baked into casual chat. Let's start with stuff used for managing family chaos or showing you're annoyed.
Like when Claire says to Phil, "What's with the workout clothes?" That phrase, "what's with the..." You hear that all the time.
All the time. It's super informal, a common way to ask why something is the way it is. Often shows a bit of surprise, maybe curiosity, or even slight annoyance. Like the thing you're asking about is a little unusual.
So Claire's kind of questioning Phil's choice of clothes there.
Exactly. Implying slight disapproval or just confusion. You might hear, "What's with the long face?" if someone looks sad, or maybe, "What's with all the racket?" if there's noise. It's a really versatile opener.
Okay, another good one. Jay telling Gloria, "Let's take it down a notch." That feels very American idiom-y.
It really does. Take it down a notch, classic American idiom. Means calm down, reduce the intensity, maybe lessen the enthusiasm a bit.
So Jay's using it when Gloria's getting super intense cheering at Manny's soccer game.
Precisely. He's telling her to relax, tone down the outburst. It's a pretty polite but sometimes firm way to suggest someone's being a bit too loud or dramatic.
And that stage direction, Gloria wheels on her. Even though it's a direction, it's great vocabulary.
It is. Wheels on her. It paints such a picture. Turning quickly, aggressively, to confront someone, like a wheel pivoting sharply.
So it captures her immediate angry reaction to that soccer mom criticizing Manny.
Perfectly. It's a powerful visual for that sudden, aggressive turn in an interaction. Great descriptive verb.
Haley, being the teenager, often uses phrases around embarrassment, like, "You guys are just going to embarrass me," or she's like completely freaking out and embarrassing me.
Right, to embarrass someone,
Yeah.
meaning to make them feel ashamed, awkward, maybe humiliated. Haley's fear of her parents' actions, especially with her new boyfriend Dylan around, is classic teen stuff.
She's worried their behavior will make her look bad or feel awkward.
Exactly. It's a key concept for understanding social dynamics, especially among teens.
And Phil's attempt to be cool leads to that amazing line. "Yeah, take a chill pill," by Och.
Oh, cringe. Take a chill pill is another informal idiom meaning calm down, relax. Often used when someone's seen as overreacting.
And the bio.
Yeah, this Phil deliberately misspelling bitch, trying to use a milder, supposedly cooler curse word to connect with Haley. It backfires spectacularly, obviously.
Huh. Yeah.
And this example teaches the idiom, but also that crucial cultural lesson. Slang can sound incredibly awkward, even offensive, if you use it wrong or if you're not the right person to use it. Fluency isn't just knowing the word, it's knowing when and how.
So true. Okay, let's shift to navigating relationships and conflict. Lots of gems there, too. Like the soccer dad saying to Jay, "Remind me not to mess with your daughter."
Don't mess with another great informal idiom. It means don't provoke, annoy, or interfere with someone. Often implies that person is tough, dangerous, or just someone you shouldn't trifle with.
So the dad's reacting to Gloria's outburst, thinking she's Jay's daughter, and basically saying, "Wow, she's fierce."
Pretty much. It's a phrase showing respectful caution, maybe even a hint of fear. Don't cross that person.
Then Jay refers to Gloria's big reaction as that little blow up of yours.
A blow up. Yeah, that's an informal noun for a sudden outburst of anger, a temper tantrum almost. Jay uses it to describe Gloria's public anger at the game, suggesting it's kind of characteristic of her, a concise way to label that sudden anger.
And when Gloria keeps pushing him about what the dad said, Jay shuts it down with, "It doesn't matter, drop it."
Drop it. Very common. Means stop talking about something, let it go, abandon the subject. Jay wants to end the conversation about the insult. It's often used to signal finality in an argument, like, we're done talking about this.
Okay, over to Mitchell and Cam. Cameron, frustrated with Mitchell avoiding things, says, "You wussed out."
Wussed out. That's informal slang. Means you acted cowardly, you were weak, you failed to do something because you were scared.
So Cam's accusing Mitchell of being too afraid to tell the family about adopting Lily.
Exactly. Highlighting Mitchell's anxiety and avoidance is a pretty strong accusatory term. Calling someone a wuss is calling them weak or cowardly.
Cameron also asks Mitchell pretty bluntly, "Is there a particular reason you've been in a bitchy mood all day?"
Yeah, bitchy mood. Informal, definitely a bit aggressive. Means being bad-tempered, irritable, generally unpleasant. Cam's expressing his frustration with Mitchell's negativity on what should be a happy day. Cutting right to the chase.
I'm following that up with, "What is your deal?"
What is your deal? Another informal, often exasperated question. You ask it when someone's acting weird, annoying, or just inexplicably. Cam's trying to force Mitchell to explain why he's being so negative. It's like saying, explain yourself what's going on with you.
Back to the Dunphas. Claire confesses about her reaction to Dylan. "I lost it in front of them."
Lost it. Common idiom. Means losing control of your emotions, usually your temper or your composure, sometimes even your sanity for a moment. Claire's describing her panic, her emotional outburst when Dylan arrived, implies a moment of breaking down.
And Haley, summarizing her mom's reaction, says she is like completely freaking out.
Freaking out. Super common informal idiom. Means panicking, getting extremely upset, maybe behaving irrationally, often in an exaggerated way. Haley uses it to describe her mom's reaction to the boyfriend situation, perfectly capturing that teen perspective of parental overreaction. It's about being overwhelmed by emotion.
Okay, so those are great general phrases. But Modern Family also gives us language that really defines specific characters, right? Like Jay calling Manny's romantic plan a suicide mission.
Right. Suicide mission, that's hyperbole, exaggeration for effect, means a task or plan that's almost guaranteed to fail, probably disastrously. Jay's being dramatic about Manny confessing his love to an older girl at the mall. Shows his skepticism, his worry about Manny getting crushed. It's an over-the-top way to say, this is a terrible idea.
But then, after Manny fails, Jay surprises him with praise. "You took a big swing, and I respect the hell out of that." Two great phrases there.
Yeah, two excellent ones. Took a big swing. That idiom means making a bold attempt, taking a big risk. Implies courage, ambition, like swinging for the fences in baseball.
And respect the hell out of that.
That's just an emphatic way to show strong admiration or approval. The hell out of adds intensity. So Jay is genuinely praising Manny's courage, his boldness, even though he failed. It reveals Jay's underlying affection and respect. A really powerful moment of validation.
Phil's awkwardness gives us gems, too, like when Dylan is carrying him, and Phil says, "You're very strong, Holmes."
Holmes. Yeah, that's slang. A term of address kind of like dude or bro, meant to imply friendliness, camaraderie. Phil uses it awkwardly here. Another example of his failed attempt to sound cool and connect with youth culture. Shows the gap between knowing a word and using it authentically.
And Phil's internal thought about Dylan. Your eyes are saying, "I know what you're here for," and that shiznit is broke.
Shiznit is broke. More modern slang, a variation of the shit is broke, basically means something's wrong, messed up, or it's not going to happen. Like, your plan is foiled. Phil's attempt at sounding intimidating in his own head just perfectly captures his desire to seem tough, even if the execution is, well, Phil.
Cameron's explanation for his weight gain is funny, too. "Sure, I gained a few pounds while we were expecting the baby, but that was stress."
Huh. Yeah, that's a funny take on sympathy weight, when partner gains weight during pregnancy.
Yeah.
It also naturally uses that common, polite phrase, expecting a baby, for being pregnant. Kim's justification, especially when we later see him with chocolate, adds that self-aware humor.
Claire, complaining about your kids and their phones. "Your cell phone's glued to your hands."
Glued to your hands, another great idiom. means constantly holding or using something, unable or unwilling to put it down. Claire's using it to critique her kid's tech obsession, a really common generational complaint. Paints a vivid picture of constant attachment.
We also get specific vocabulary that adds flavor, like Cameron plopped next to Mitchell on the plane.
Plopped next to? Good verb choice. Implies sitting down heavily, casually, maybe with a little thud. Suggests Cam's relaxed, uninhibited nature, contrasting with Mitchell's stiffness, adds personality.
Jay is exasperated. Oh, for Chris sakes.
For Chris sakes. It's a mild exclamation of frustration or annoyance. A more polite version of, for Christ's sake. Jay uses it when Manny gets overly dramatic about his love quest, a very common, slightly older-fashioned way to show you're irritated.
Jay also warns Manny, watch it.
Watch it. That's an informal warning. Telling someone to be careful, stop what they're doing or saying, often implies they're crossing a line or about to say something out of bounds. Jay uses it when Manny hints at the age difference with Gloria, a sore spot for Jay. Quick, sharp warning.
And that security guard at the hall, we ask that all mall walkers stay to the right.
Mall walkers. That's a very specific term, right? Often used for seniors who walk in malls for exercise. The term itself immediately paints a picture of a certain demographic and highlights Jay's horror at being included in it. It's a niche cultural term.
And Mitchell's comment about Twinkies.
Right. Twinkies, the snack cake brand. Mitchell uses it self-deprecatingly to refer to gay men after a woman on the plane makes a comment about Lily squishing them. Shows how language can have secondary meanings, often humorous or loaded, that rely on shared cultural understanding. It's not just about the cake.
Wow, that's a fantastic rundown of so many practical phrases. It really drives home how shows like this are packed with real, living English. But, like you said earlier, language isn't just words, is it? It's so tied up in culture. And this show is amazing at showing how backgrounds, generations, experiences shape how people talk and misunderstand each other.
Absolutely. Take Gloria's accent, for instance. Little things like her pronouncing Phil as feel are charming, but they show how accents can lead to minor, often funny miscommunications.
Yeah.
But then there's her literal translation of idioms, like when Jay uses the crude term cojones, and Gloria tries to explain it by saying, please don't do a torture on my language, instead of something like, don't mangle my language.
Yeah. That's brilliant. It's more than just funny. It really shows that hurdle learner's face. You can't just swap words directly, right? You have to learn to think in the new language's patterns, especially with idioms.
Exactly. Literal translations often lead to these kinds of amusing but very common errors. It shows that even native speakers sometimes twist phrases around.
Okay, what about Jay's classic line to Gloria at the soccer game? Could you try to remember, this is Highland Estates, not Columbia?
Oh yeah, that's a key line. It sounds harsh, maybe, but it's Jay's blunt way of trying to get Gloria to tone down her passionate outburst by referencing place and perceived cultural norms.
So he's implying her level of public emotion might be fine back home, but it's kind of out of place in their buttoned-down American suburb.
That's the implication, yeah. It highlights that cultural clash in communication styles. It shows how background influences expectations of public behavior, emotional expression. It's not just what you say, but how and where you say it. A real clash of norms.
And Gloria's hot Latin thing comparing Manny to a bullfighter. Jay uses that stereotype about her passion.
And she kind of leans into it, right?
Yeah.
She takes that hot Latin thing stereotype and uses it, even applying it to Manny by calling him a bullfighter to explain his intense passion.
So it explores how stereotypes get used in conversation, sometimes negatively, sometimes positively, and how people might embrace or twist them.
Exactly. Gloria takes ownership of it, gives her own meaning to validate Manny's feelings. It shows how identity and language are fluid, how people navigate cultural perceptions.
Okay, shifting to generational gaps. Phil's cool dad act is just comedy gold for anyone trying to figure out modern slang. His attempts at playa, yo, shiznit, knowing High School Musical dances. It's funny, but what's the language lesson there?
It's a perfect example of how slang changes fast and how older generations trying to adopt it can just sound wrong.
Really awkward.
Totally. Phil's efforts highlight those generational divides. The lesson is huge. Language is dynamic. It signals belonging. Slang isn't just words. It's a social code. Using it badly doesn't just make you sound uncool. It marks you as an outsider. Shows fluency is tied to social context and knowing your audience. Powerful lesson.
Claire's complaints about modern teens are also revealing, linguistically. Her whole thing about cell phones glued to their hands like you're little business people and asking, whatever happened to ice cream? Doesn't anyone want to run around and ride bikes?
Hmm. Yeah, those lines really capture a common generational perspective on technology and childhood. Claire's expressing that adult frustration about a perceived loss of innocence or simpler times.
And she does it through those nostalgia questions and contrasts, right?
Exactly. Using rhetorical questions and comparing now to then, it's an effective way to communicate disapproval or longing without just saying, I don't like this. It's a communication style in itself.
Now, the show also touches on sensitive topics and stereotypes, often through humor. And just to be clear, we're reporting on the language used by the characters here, reflecting their flaws and biases as part of the story, not endorsing those views ourselves.
Absolutely. Essential point. It's about observing the language in the source material. Take Mitchell's nervousness and some of his comments, which seem rooted in maybe internalized anxieties, like worrying about his dad announcing himself to avoid seeing anything gay or wanting to paint Lily's room less gay.
Right. That language reveals those societal pressures, doesn't it? Even coming from within the LGBTQ plus community itself. Mitchell using phrases like less gay or mentioning floating fairies shows his sensitivity to stereotypes, likely because of how he expects his family might react. His language reflects his anxiety.
And Jay's comments about Mitchell and Lily offer more examples of language carrying, well, cultural baggage. Things like, if Cam walks out here with boobs, I'm leaving, or no kissing, we're here, or even calling Lily a cute little fortune cookie.
Yeah, those lines definitely land differently now, but in the show, they're part of Jay's character, Gruff, maybe a bit outdated in his views. The humor often comes from his slow, awkward adjustment.
Exactly. The lines reflect his character's views at that point. They illustrate how language can carry implicit bias, even when used somewhat endearingly by a character who is ultimately learning and growing. It's about that linguistic negotiation of changing norms.
Mitchell's comment about Lily's eyes opening wide. I didn't even think Asian eyes opened that wide. That's another tricky one.
It is. And within the show's context, it seems designed to highlight Mitchell's own flaws and anxieties under pressure. He says something insensitive out of nervousness.
So the show uses it to show that even well-meaning characters can mess up, say the wrong thing, especially when stressed, revealing maybe unconscious biases.
That seems to be the function, yeah. It's presented as a character flaw, not an endorsed sentiment.
And Claire's internal thoughts about her daughter's clothes, describing Haley's dress like a hooker and Alex's like a lesbian.
Right. That's her inner monologue, revealing her judgmental side, her anxieties. It shows how people use language, even privately, to categorize and judge based on appearance, often leaning on social stereotypes. It tells us about Claire's character and mindset.
So, moving beyond the words and cultural layers, the show also teaches us how much context, tone, and even nonverbal stuff matter for real understanding. Even in an audio deep dive like this, talking about those elements helps.
Hugely important. Humor and irony, especially, relies so much on context and how something is delivered. Think about Claire's super dramatic rivets analogy for raising kids.
Oh yeah, if you get one little rivet wrong, it will drive off a cliff and explode. So over the top.
Exactly. That intense hyperbolic metaphor is funny, precisely because it contrasts so sharply with Phil's totally understated reply, we have a lot of fun.
Right. The contrast makes Phil's line funnier.
Yeah, it cuts through her drama and highlights their totally different perspective, all through their language choices.
Or the whole absurd scheduling of when Phil can shoot Luke with the BB gun. You could shoot him later. What about 3? You could shoot him at 4:15.
It's hilarious because they're using completely mundane, everyday scheduling language for something utterly ridiculous and inappropriate.
Yeah.
The humor comes from that clash, the ordinary language applied to the dark, absurd situation. You have to understand the non-literal meaning of Phil's punishments.
And Manny's heartbroken line after Brenda Feldman rejects him, I gave her my heart and she gave me a pretzel dog.
Classic. The comedy there is the juxtaposition, right? His grand, profound romantic gesture met with this incredibly mundane, anticlimactic, ordinary snack highlights the funny pathos of young love's disappointments. Understatement for comedic effect.
And those nonverbal cues mentioned in the script directions. Awkward beat, Claire's clearly thrown, shoots Jay a steely look, Phil stares intently into the camera, Cameron slaps him, Phil accidentally fires the gun again, he does a big wide-armed flourish. Even just reading those adds so much.
Totally. Discussing those cues helps you, the listener, grasp the full interaction. An awkward beat lets you feel the discomfort. Claire being thrown shows her surprise. A steely look is pure disapproval without words. Phil's stare breaks the fourth wall, sharing a secret with the audience. Cam slapping Mitchell is immediate physical frustration. These descriptions add layers of fear, shock, drama that words alone miss. It teaches how much gets communicated without speech.
Okay, this deep dive really underscores that Modern Family is way more than just a funny show. It's like this incredible living classroom for English and American culture. So, for you, our listener, wanting to use TV as a learning tool, what are the main practical takeaways?
Okay, first big one. Active listening for nuance. Don't just passively hear the words. Rewatch, re-listen. Pay attention to how things are said. The tone, the emotion, the pauses, the rhythm.
And think about who is saying it and why in that situation.
Exactly. Understanding the characters like uptight Claire or goofy Phil helps you anticipate and interpret their language. It builds context a dictionary just can't give you.
Second takeaway.
Context is king. Always. The meaning of slang like take a chill pill or idioms like wussed out depends entirely on the specific situation. Don't just grab a phrase and assume you know how to use it everywhere. Look at the situation, the relationship, the tone.
And those cultural references like High School Musical or political figures.
Yeah, they're often time sensitive. Looking them up as you encounter them really boosts your cultural fluency. Helps you get the jokes, the relevance, the unspoken assumptions behind the conversation.
Okay, third point.
Go beyond just vocabulary. Pay attention to the social cues. The show is great at demonstrating different social registers, what's considered appropriate behavior in different settings. Think Jay's public versus private demeanor, or how Gloria's passion lands differently depending on where she is.
Learn the unspoken rules.
Pretty much.
Mm.
And watch how characters react naturally. Haley's teenage ugh or her, oh my God. Those are common, almost automatic responses. Understanding and maybe even mimicking those natural reactions helps you sound more fluent.
And finally,
Immerse yourself and use repetition. Don't hesitate to pause, rewind, repeat lines out loud. Try to copy the intonation, the rhythm. And most importantly, try using some of the new phrases you learn in your own conversations when it feels right. The more you use it, the more natural it becomes.
it really is like a dynamic English classroom, bringing the language to life. We've covered so much character vocabulary, everyday idioms, the huge impact of culture on communication. Modern Family just offers this incredibly rich learning experience.
Definitely goes way beyond a textbook.
So, as we've seen with all three families, there are these complex mixes of personality and culture. It makes you wonder, what if the real way to learn a language isn't just memorizing rules, but really getting inside the messy, funny, sometimes awkward lives of the people who speak it?
That's a great thought to end on. So for you listening, think about the characters we discussed today. Is there one phrase or piece of slang you heard that you feel perfectly sums up their personality? And why? What's one thing you learned today that maybe you can try using in your own English practice?
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of Modern Family, and we look forward to the next one.